Welcome and thanks for joining the Discover AlUla webinar series with Selling Travel. And oh gosh, I remember first hearing about AlUla was back in 2019 at World Travel Market, before the word COVID had ever been mentioned, when we were free and able to roam wherever we wanted. And it was such an impressive stand. And I remember I was given a pair of 3D goggles and I took a virtual tour around AlUla, and I saw the sandstone tombs and the sweeping desert landscapes. And it was so impressive. And I just couldn't believe that a place like that still existed, that was still so unknown and untouched by tourists, without any crowds or anyone looking to sell you anything. And as Saudi Arabia opened its doors to tourism, Selling Travel was tasked with spreading the word about this ancient region. And we were actually the first trade publication to visit in January 2020. And it's a trip that our writers still speak of very fondly. And they still say that it was one of their top trips they've ever been on. Since then, we've developed a dedicated agent hub highlighting AlUla's extraordinary archaeological wonders, its adventure thrills, and its rich nature as well. We've conducted interviews with key industry figures and, of course, written our colourful how to sell articles, which I'm sure a lot of you have read, hopefully. I'll just finish by saying the phrase hidden gem. It's used a lot these days when describing usually the latest Instagram trend. But what I will say is AlUla is truly a hidden gem and a real off the beaten track adventure. And I'll hand over to Claire Golding, who is AlUla's Director UK. She'll be telling us a lot more about the destination. And just to mention, we'll be answering any questions at the end of the presentation. So please just click on the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen and type in your question, and we will cover everything at the end of the presentation. So hi Claire, how are you today?
I'm really good, thanks Jessica, all good. Thank you for that amazing introduction.
Great, well over to you, tell us more.
Right. Well, as I say, thank you and mahaba everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar in partnership with the lovely team at Selling Travel. I think AlUla has been a magnet for intrepid travelers for millennia. So it really is exciting for all of us to play our own part in developing this amazing new destination, as Jess has really highlighted so well, and sharing its rediscovery and supporting its future. So today I'm going to share a little bit of insight into AlUla, a place that is unique on so many levels. It's located at the crossroad of continents and what was known as the incense route, connecting Asia, Africa, and Europe, and transiting all those wonderful spices, myrrh, cotton, ebony, and silk. So as Jess says, it truly is Arabia's hidden gem. Welcome to the world's largest open-air museum. Now, I'm not sure how many of you listening today are already AlUla specialists and have some knowledge of the destination, so I am going to review some of the core destination information as we go, but also include some of the fantastic new product that's been opening up over the past 12 months. Now, just first of all, as you all know, there is also 5 wonderful Galaxy watches up for grabs, and you've all completed the first step, and that's by listening into today's webinar. So do register, make sure you register and complete the AlUla specialist course on alulaspecialist.com after this session, and you'll be in for an option to win one of those. Now, perhaps most important, getting to AlUla. Well, AlUla is located up in that northwest area of Saudi Arabia. It's roughly 646 odd miles northwest of Riyadh and about 400 miles north of Jeddah. Now, the area that encompasses AlUla is actually 8,700 square miles. Now, that's almost the size of Wales, just to put it into context. And it's only got a population of about 50,000 people. Air access currently is with Saudi Airlines or BA into the main gateways of Riyadh and Jeddah. The airport itself is designated an international airport. Obviously, we have domestic connections off those gateways into AlUla, but we also already operate a number of charters and private aircraft services directly into AlUla. Flynas has now commenced services from Dubai directly in, and Emirates partner carrier Fly Dubai is also commencing services into AlUla at the beginning of March. So twin center destinations or combinations with United Arab Emirates, I think will provide some amazing holiday itineraries and experiences, combination of experiences for your customers. And at the moment, there's also a trial of a direct international service on Saudia Airlines from Paris, which is a really good option at the moment because the code share with Air France would mean you could leave London early in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, and actually be in AlUla by 10 o'clock in the evening. So that's one to watch out for. Now, getting around AlUla, yes, it is a large area, size of Wales, as I've mentioned, but the core of the activities, the accommodation, is all in a central area, which you can see on this sort of brown area on the map here. If you just look at the tab on the side, you'll see that number 1 is AlUla International Airport in the south, and number 2 is Hegra. And that distance in transit time is about 35 minutes. So you can appreciate that pretty much everything else in between, all the accommodation, other key heritage sites, they're all within probably 15 to 35 minutes of each other. So transferring around is really easy. Now, it's very hard to give you a true feeling of the essence of AlUla when you haven't visited. It is one of those places you really need to visit, and I hope today you'll be inspired enough to get it on your own bucket list and not leave it too long to visit. But if I try to explain it, and from my own experience, it really is this wonderful open air living museum. Its heritage is quite genuinely carved in rocks, and the extraordinary landscapes provide a natural masterpiece visually. And I certainly felt it. You get a genuine feeling of awe, of silence and monumentality. And maybe that's partly due to how we all felt during COVID and wanting to be out in open spaces. But it is an incredible feeling. And I think that is that reflection of a landscape and a culture that's been unaltered and absolutely naturally preserved for centuries and is only just now being rediscovered. So I hope that gives you just a little bit of a feel for the destination. AlUla really represents over 200,000 years of human legacy, right back as far as the Stone Age, and over 7,000 years of human civilization, which includes the Nabateans, if you think Petra, and the ancient Arabian kingdoms, such as the Dadanites and the Leonites. Now, let's first up just look at climate and seasonality, because this is really something for you to consider when you're booking a trip for your clients. AlUla does have a desert landscape, but it is often less humid than the cities. So I guess think USA and think Arizona in terms of climate. The winter temperatures are absolutely lovely, but the evenings can be quite chilly and jackets will be required probably for some activities. AlUla is, however, open year round. All the heritage sites are open year round, but possibly the most popular times and best times to visit based on the weather are the shoulder and peak seasons, so October through March. And this is also when AlUla's festivals and events run, and products such as amazing pop-up restaurants like Annabelle's of London, which I will tell you more about later, and seasonal activities such as hot air ballooning or the A-lister concerts take place. And currently we've actually got Seal and Alicia Keys in town. And I would also highlight, as you will see more in the presentation, we really are a small boutique destination. So often weekends get busy. So perhaps if you can aim for midweek stays, that is a really good tip. So what are AlUla's key experiences? Well, they really are 4 key experiences: the rich history and heritage, but it is also its nature and natural attractions. And I think, as Jess said at the beginning, with no large crowds, which is fantastic. Arts and culture are of really growing relevance. And I think AlUla is bringing to life modern art and cultural events against this wonderful, magnificent backdrop and the deep history. So old and new side by side. And running in the shoulder and peak season is AlUla Moments. This is our events and festivals calendar. And there are 4 festivals: Winter at Tentora, AlUla Arts, AlUla Skies, and AlUla Wellness Festival, running effectively from the end of October through until end of March. All of them themed, as you gather by the names. And within these events, there are, or within these festivals, there are a lot of quite sought after events and ticketing, such as watching an amazing symphony outside under the stars, going hot air ballooning, or taking a vintage aircraft flight, or the A-lister concerts. Or currently, we've got Desert X, just opened last week or launched its new art exhibition. I'll talk more about the adventure trails later on, but just as a couple of tips, because our product is changing and new product coming online so quickly, I really do recommend you regularly check out the AlUla Specialist Hub, and I would also check experiencealula.com for all those latest product developments. And also you can check out the festival of events and the individual events that are happening. And I would probably do that once you have booked a client and a client is looking to see are there anything extra they can do or see during their particular dates of their visit. Now, as mentioned, 4 key heritage sites. We have Hegra, Dedan, Jabal Ikma, and also AlUla Old Town. Now, I'm going to start with a little bit of Hegra. And Hegra really is our legacy. It is the southernmost city of the Nabateans, sister city to Petra in the north, and the first Saudi Arabia UNESCO World Heritage Site. And here you're going to find over 110 remarkably well-preserved tombs and structures that sit across about 52 hectares or 128 acres of land. That's about the size of 64 football pitches, to be exact. You would tour Hegra on an escorted tour, which takes around 2 hours. And the starting point at the entrance to this site is the Hijaz Railway experience. And some of you might think Hijaz Railway, Lawrence of Arabia, to try and context that a little bit. But the other key sites are what you've just seen in that short video, including Jabal Ithlib, which is a natural mountain outcrop. And it includes an incredible rock chamber called the Diwan, which was cut out for Nabatean sumptuous banquets, and an amazing photographic opportunity called the Seek, where literally there's this tiny little entrance through the mountains, and the view is absolutely fantastic. It's a real photograph dream. And other areas such as Jabal al-Banat, which is where 29 tombs have all been carved out of one rock, right the way around one rock, which is wonderful to see. And then you have the ultimate icon, which is the single tomb, the monolithic tomb of Lian, son of Kuza. It's our largest tomb. It measures about 72 meters tall and stands alone. And it stands alone probably because it shows just how important and rich Lian was, obviously, to have his own tomb. Now, there are several ways to enjoy Hegra. You can do the standard 2-hour tour, which departs on a coach from a site called Winter Park, and it provides a hop-on, hop-off experience. But I would highly recommend the vintage Land Rover tour, which is a small group experience. It's a maximum of 7 passengers, and you have your own Rawi or guide driver. And you'll see all the same key icons, but with a much more exclusive feel. And there's also the Rock Art Trail, which is an excellent tour, and you can do that once you're on the heritage site. And I would actually suggest taking that at night when the sun goes down. And it really is quite enthralling, as tales can be told of the travel, trade, offerings, and warnings that are all etched into the rock. Now let's just have a little look at Dedan, the next of the sites. So that really is a snippet of what you're going to see. Dedan was the capital of the ancient Arabian kingdoms of both Dedan and Lian, and it sits right next to the Big Valleys Oasis. There is a lot of research and excavation work ongoing, and at the moment, only about 2 or 3% of the city is actually uncovered at this stage. So it's an incredibly exciting archaeological development. And inevitably, each time you visit, you're going to see more as the various treasures are being unearthed. But the key display here is more than a dozen tombs cut into the red rock cliff. And from a distance, these just look like dark triangles. But once you get up close, you'll see they are quite skillfully crafted funerary monuments, and including seated lion structures that mark the lion tombs. And lions actually symbolized power and protection. And they probably marked the burial site of a very elite member of society all those hundreds of years ago, probably even royalty. They're about 50 meters off the ground, which really does spur the imagination as to how on earth they were carved without any modern day equipment. Now, about 10 minutes away from Dedan is Jabal Ikma. This is really a historic site that we would call an open air library. And it's significant because it has such a high concentration of inscriptions and wonderful rock art, which predates the Arabic language, actually. It's home to over 450 different pieces of inscription and art, and dates back as far as the first millennium. And your guide at Jabal Ikma will really bring these stories to life, and it actually teach you what those people were doing in those days, how they traveled through the region. It's actually really is a genuine open air library. Now, how do you experience these two? Well, you can experience together on a combined tour, again, about 2 hours to do both. Like Hegra, you have the option of the standard 2-hour tour with a departure from Winter Park, or you can use a vintage, take the vintage tour, which I think is a much nicer product with just 7 other guests. And there are some new developments at Dedan as well. There's an opening of a new crafts pavilion, and there are more immersive experiences developing, like taking part in some of the archaeological digs and an archaeological workshop for those that are interested. Now, before I talk about the Old Town, which is the fourth of the heritage sites, I actually wanted to just mention the Oasis Heritage Trail at this point, because the main oasis itself stretches right down the central area of AlUla. And the oasis is about 14 kilometers, which is a real green oasis in itself, north to south. And it's this oasis that has made AlUla that cultural crossroads and the home of ancient kingdoms, because it obviously provides a safe haven and a green oasis providing water and food and shelter. And today, this oasis really is a modern day agricultural epicenter, particularly for dates. There's over 2 million date palms here for citrus fruit, aromatic herbs, and perfumed oils such as the moringa oil. And so I mentioned the Oasis Heritage Trail at this point because it actually starts right next to the Dedan Visitor Centre. So it's a fantastic inclusion on an itinerary combining with Dedan. And the trail itself is a self-guided, easy walk. It takes about 2 hours. It's just under 3 kilometres. So it's a nice, simple way of walking and joining the dots to AlUla Old Town and underneath the canopy of date palms and through those citrus farms and herb farms. And it's free. Now, AlUla Old Town, last but not least, the last of our heritage sites. So AlUla itself, the Old Town, was established right back in the 12th century. And it became an essential settlement, particularly on the route between Mecca and Damascus. But it was actually inhabited as recently as the 1980s, which is fascinating in itself. At the moment, it is a reconstruction of what was there. It's been very sensitively restored, and it is an absolute labyrinth of winding alleyways. There's over 900 traditional houses, 400 shops, and town squares, and they're all designed to be attached to each other, which obviously provided a lot of protection and underneath the cover of an incredible castle that's built there. And the guides that will take you through this old town will share the history and fascinating stories, not only providing that historical context, but many of our Rawis, our guides, they also share their own family stories of living there. So it's a wonderful tour to engage with locals, and our locals are really proud to be able to share their stories. And right next to the Old Town is the Old Town Market. So another good place just to relax and hang out and, to be honest, just watch the world go by. There are some beautiful, authentic handicraft stores there, a lot of local artisans at work. And to be honest, the restaurants and cafes are fantastic. A couple that I recommend are Suhail, which is a very high-end Saudi Arabian dining experience with dishes that are all inspired by the local spices. And the other one is Merkaz, and the cost is really very, very good value. And Al Jadida is new. Al Jadida means new town, and it is an absolute must-see new precinct which has just opened for AlUla. It's going to be a year-round, open year-round. It's compact and very walkable, and it is already full of new restaurants, of curated art attractions and galleries and eateries, as I've said. And each area, there are 5 key precincts, and they've all got their own special feel and vibe. Now, AlUla has incredible rock formations right the way across the whole region. And it is, in that sense, a photographer's dream. And often the best time is to see many of these natural monuments in early morning or early evening when the sunrise and sunset occurs. Perhaps one of the most obvious and iconic is Elephant Rock, or Jabal al-Fil. And this rock formation really has captured the imagination of many photographers worldwide. As the name suggests, it's a sandstone marvel, which is shaped like an elephant with a very distinctive trunk and body, as you can see there. It is the result of millions of years of natural wind and water erosion, and it actually stands an incredible 52 meters high. You don't need tickets to visit. Again, it's a free attraction. You can drive there or take a taxi there. There's parking available and a cafe. But we probably would say it's best appreciated on a tour, and certainly sunset or sunrise is a beautiful time to see it with the colors. Now, the skies across AlUla are quite clear. There's an area north of AlUla Old Town called Garameel, and this provides a perfect landscape for stargazing with its naturally formed rock pillars. And I think looking at this image, you often describe it as a little bit Martian in its landscape. These are tall, dark, thin pillars of sandstone, which stretch literally from the desert up into the sky. They were once the remains of a huge mountain, and they've been shaped over many years with absolutely no human intervention. And the skies, as I say, are amazing over AlUla. They're not impacted by any man-made light. So the stargazing across the region is quite spectacular. When I was there back in October, November, it was the right time to see the Milky Way, and you literally could see the whole Milky Way. It was honestly quite incredible. And I think as the sun sets here, again, the sunset and the colors against this backdrop are amazing. And it's really a visit and a tour that I'd highly recommend. I would recommend, if you do this in peak or shoulder, that you do have a jacket, because the evenings can be cold. But this is an experience. Let me show you the experience that your visitors would have. As you probably gathered, the tour does include a dinner experience as well. Now, if your client is looking to explore beyond those heritage sites, or for more active experiences and the chance to really explore and get out there in the nature, the natural landscapes, there are plenty of curated and quite unique activities, no matter what your age or level of fitness. Firstly, on walking and hiking, there are a number of different trails that really do explore the different and diverse landscapes. Probably my favorite to recommend would be the Adventure Trail. This is probably the best representation of AlUla's rich heritage alongside the beautiful nature. It's 8 kilometers long, and it is a historical treasure because it includes clusters of incredible pictographs and rock carvings as you go. Or the Hidden Valley hike, which is a lot shorter. It's 4 kilometers long, and it really is a natural walk through the sand deserts. But if you prefer 2 wheels, then you could go on a cycle trail, or perhaps go on 4 wheels or 4 legs, camel trekking, or take a 4x4 safari through the Sharan Nature Reserve. And if you have got some adrenaline junkies, then I would suggest trying something like the zip line between the mountains. It's actually one of the longest, I believe. It's 1.5 kilometers long, and at speeds you would travel at up to 120 kilometers an hour. An absolute must-do, however, is the helicopter tour. This really you must add to any itinerary. It's just a 30-minute flight, but it actually goes over 7 of AlUla's most iconic sites, and it is special, and it is a great way to get that bird's eye view and to just see that monumentality from the sky. It's not horribly expensive. It's about, depending on the rate of exchange, but about £145 per person, and a maximum of 5 people. And again, the core touring, it departs from Winter Park, and from there you would go to the First San helicopter pad. Now, I've mentioned the boutique experience, so where should your customers stay? There is a number of high quality accommodation providers, and these are really providing a boutique destination experience. Our key accommodation offering currently is the 3-star Sahari, the Chardon 4-star, the newly opened Habitas, which is very much an eco resort but 5-star, and the Banyan Tree will be opening its doors in the next few months as well. And we're also really excited to be supported by the incredible brands with Aman and Azulik, who are both investing and opening the very first Middle East properties in AlUla in 23-24, together with another stunning property called the Sharan Resort. And this particular property will be incredibly unique. It's being designed by the French architect Jean Nouvel, and it's set right in the nature reserve and actually is being built into the rocks. So you will not be able to see it from the reserve, and you will literally look out through this incredible rock space. Restaurants I will touch on because I think the restaurant scene might surprise you. It certainly surprised me when I visited. AlUla has welcomed a growing number, in fact, of restaurants and hospitality outlets in the last year, including 10 new restaurants already in 2022. And these vary from casual dining to fine dining to limited time sensory pop-ups during the festival season. And there's also a choice of some great new restaurants at those hotels that I've mentioned. I highlighted 2 of my favorites in Old Town, but I would also just like to mention, with the British connection, we have Mariah Social. And Jason Atherton opened this wonderful restaurant on the top of the world's largest mirrored building, Mariah, which is also our concert hall, opened that in October. And then the pop-up I mentioned is Annabelle's AlUla. This is their second year of operating. Their first year, they had a pop-up at Hegra, and this year, their pop-up restaurant, which runs from just before Christmas through to the end of March, actually at Jabal Ikma. You do need to, if your clients want to make reservations, I highly recommend booking well in advance. They do get incredibly booked out. So why sell AlUla? Well, it is not going to be a volume destination. It isn't a volume destination at the moment, as you can see by the number of hotel rooms that we have. And the vision for AlUla is to offer a very immersive and boutique offering and offer visitors quite transformative experiences, setting the standards for luxury, for authentic luxury, and with a responsible approach. It is a destination for cultural buffs, for nature lovers and art lovers. It's unique, as I hope you've seen. At the moment, you'd be one of the first to experience what has been an unseen destination for many years. It is easy to access and becoming more easy as flights increase internationally into AlUla. And it does provide this, I think, incredible untold story. We've also welcomed a considerable number now of trade partners in the UK that are including AlUla in their programs, which is fantastic to see. And we've listed a number of these here. And we also have our recommended DMCs, Go Zahid, Albarak, and Tetra Pelan, should you wish to actually go directly yourself to a DMC. But you will see a wider option of product coming online, and including standalone AlUla packages, as well as small group tours right the way across KSA, but obviously including AlUla. Now, just as a little bit of useful information, so I've mentioned our trade training program and trade hub, alulaspecialist.com. Do use this site. We are continually updating it, and it really is a hub of information for you. Everything from images, from webinars, including this one, which will be loaded, to downloadable PDFs and brochures as well. And of course, do use and access our social, because you will be able to see all of the amazing things that are happening, especially at events and festival time. So there we have it. That is a very whirlwind 30-minute tour of AlUla. I really do thank you for listening, and I hope this is going to provide some inspiration to visit. I'm going to pass back to Jess, and it will be interesting to see what questions you might have. Thanks, Jess.
Thanks so much, Claire. That was very inspiring, and I feel like I've learned a lot. I didn't know that there was such a mixture of new and old, and green spaces as well. For such a desert landscape, there's such abundant nature. We do have a few questions coming through. So the first, can you give us an idea of prices of the tours, please? And that was around the time you were talking about the stargazing tour in particular.
Yeah, I can. They vary. They're not too expensive. They're around between, I would say, £50 and £70 a head, again, depending on rate of exchange. And the best place to go and get a feel for that is on the Experience AlUla website. They are all actually bookable on the website. That's not what we recommend you do, because you'll be working with a DMC or booking through a tour operator. But if you want to have a look at the pricing, you can actually see the gross pricing there.
Okay, great. And how long is the flight from Dubai?
Just over 2 hours. Just over 2 hours.
Okay, shorter than I expected. And what is the currency?
Riyals. It is riyals. Yeah. And actually, one thing we do recommend customers, there aren't a lot of ATMs around. You don't really need to use cash. Of course, you know, the credit card is a currency anywhere now, but it is always useful to have a few riyals. So we do recommend getting some as you travel.
Okay. And let's just touch on some of the questions that I'm sure people might be wondering. Well, Saudi Arabia has just recently opened to tourists, so I'm sure a lot of people will wonder, is it safe? And especially for female travellers, solo travellers, would they feel comfortable travelling around the destination?
Totally. They really, really will. It is a safe destination. Saudi Arabia as a whole has an incredibly low crime rate. And all of the visitor research that I think both the Saudi Tourism Authority have done, but also we have done, does indicate a very positive feedback. And I think, you know, there is obviously a lot of commentary in the media, but my own experience, and I think that it's also a fact that over 60% of the population is actually under 35. It's a very young nation. Many of these youngsters are very well educated. They're educated overseas, and they really want to play a part on the world stage. So they're incredibly welcoming. I think that's the one thing you will feel, perhaps surprisingly, but the Saudi hospitality is absolutely second to none. And I think as a female traveller, you know, when I visited for the first time, I had all those, I suppose, perceptions in my mind. I felt incredibly safe, and safe enough that actually I was with a group of other travellers, and we were actually walking around at night on our own. And we found that we felt absolutely safe, absolutely safe. So it's a great destination. I really do think it's one that's coming.
Okay, thanks very much. And another question, how much are the visas and how easy are they to obtain? And what are the entry requirements at the moment? That's a good question.
The e-visa is very simple. It's online process. When I booked my e-visa, which has a 90-day limit, it literally took 2 minutes to come through. So it's a very easy process. I'm just trying to think of the cost. Off the top of my head, it's probably around £80 to £100. I can't remember exactly, but it's a very simple process. Just go online and go to the e-visas. What was the second part of that question, Jess?
The entry requirements, in terms of COVID and...
Yes, at the moment, I must admit I haven't checked to see what's changed. You do require vaccinations, your 3 vaccinations, and certainly when I travelled, you still needed the PCR test, but I would just check, well, you do need a PCR test definitely to get on board the aircraft, so you would just need to check the Gov site just before you travel, but it is as simple as that.
Okay, great. And what would the cuisine be for this region?
Well, the cuisine is very local and authentic, actually. The restaurants that I mentioned in the old town are the traditional Saudi Arabian, Middle Eastern vibe. If you sort of think a little bit of Lebanon, probably, in terms of Lebanese flavors, that's what you will feel or taste. What you've got, because the Oasis is also a very natural food, I suppose, place for food, you're going to get a lot of those local spices, a lot of herbs, a lot of mint, a lot of coriander. All of those are fresh and natural and literally produced and on your plate. But a lot of the new restaurants that are coming on board are modern and new. So, for example, Jason Atherton or Annabelle's, that will be a very modern take, but using all of the local foods to give that local vibe. So it's a real combination. It totally surprised me, the quality of the food. I wasn't kind of expecting amazing food. I was sort of thinking more about, I suppose, the heritage and what I was going to see, but the food was absolutely phenomenal.
And to go alongside the food, someone is asking about alcohol. Obviously, Saudi is a dry country, so tell us more about that.
It is dry. I would probably say, and I probably shouldn't say on a live webinar, but I think you've probably gathered from the international accommodation that's coming on board, it is probably expected that within 12 months or so, probably like in Abu Dhabi, you will be able to purchase alcohol in the international hotels. At the moment, mocktails is the story. Every restaurant, including Annabelle's, has an incredible series of mocktails. And I must admit, actually, the first time I went and enjoying my glass of wine, I actually found the whole week I didn't even notice that I didn't have alcohol. There is just so much and sensory to see and do, and as I say, the food is good, and the mocktails are incredible. Selection of flavors and tastes. It's actually pretty good.
Interesting. So it's mocktails all the way.
It's mocktails all the way.
And tell us what type of client you envisage will travel to AlUla. Will it be adventurous clients? Is there a family market, couples, that sort of thing? Tell us more.
I think our first guess and what we're seeing in terms of the travellers that have been travelling now, the restrictions are being lifted. It is probably, I would say, a little bit of an older market, those people who've got time, but they are travellers. They're people who have travelled the world. They are people who know they want to see something new and a little bit different. It's definitely not the cheapest of destinations. It's a higher end destination. So it is a customer that can afford, particularly the accommodation. I wouldn't position it as a place for families, although there is room for families. And funnily enough, we are starting to get inquiries of people who want to travel with youngsters, because so many of the activities are really quite immersive. So I think there probably is a family market, but not necessarily from the UK. Definitely couples, and definitely small group touring.
Thanks very much. And we've got another question for the operators that are currently offering trips here. So we did have a slide, didn't we?
We did.
Could you reel off some of those operators?
I'll try and reel them off the top of my head, so I forgive anybody that's listening from those operators that will go shh. But you've got your operators like If Only that are obviously selling B2B, your Elegant Resorts, your Corinthian Travels, Windows on the Wild, small group touring opportunities like Explore, Voyage Urbain. There's a whole mixture now of operators, and we'll make sure, apart from the fact, I think, Jess, we've recorded this webinar, we will also be adding to the AlUla hub. We will be adding all of the operators that are selling or including AlUla in their programs. So again, once you're registered on that hub, you can easily go and see which operators you work with, and therefore be able to access holiday and itinerary products.
Okay, great. Yes, as you mentioned, this has been recorded, so anyone who wants to go back and see those slides, it will be available with Selling Travel and with yourself, Claire.
Absolutely.
Let's just touch on a bit of a controversial one. Saudi, it has had its share of bad press for its record on human rights. So why would you say agents should encourage people to visit and support a destination like that?
A tricky one, again, without getting into trouble, because I wouldn't want to be too transparent and say, to be honest, I think that the media or the wider media have not been very positive. And actually with the trade media, thank you to our trade media partners, including yourselves, who've been so incredibly supportive. But I think the key thing is that Saudi is a young country and it's a country on the move. All the changes are not going to happen overnight, but what is happening, and what is happening particularly in AlUla, you're uncovering a destination and a culture that people are eager to see. And actually the locals are really proud to show and let people in. And I don't think the Saudis' values are fundamentally actually at odds with a lot of the Western values. So the respect and the hospitality is there. My genuine feeling is go and see it. I think you will be incredibly surprised. I think it's a very safe country to visit. It is, as I say, welcoming. It's welcoming to couples of all mixes. The human rights issues are also interesting. I think media sometimes are behind the times. Women have been able to drive now for a few years. Women can get their own homes. They're not reliant on having to stay in the family home. So there is a cultural shift. It's not 100% yet, but it is absolutely moving in the right direction. And I think good tourism, which is what I think and hope we are all about, is what will help make that difference and really help Saudi on the global stage.
Great, thank you so much. And those are all the questions. We do have a request to share your contact details again so that agents can get in touch and yeah, if they need any more information, they can contact you.
That's absolutely fine, Jess. And I think what we will do afterwards together with yourselves is we'll do a follow-up to everybody that's registered and listened in today and share a link to the video, and you'll have my contact details in there. So that's absolutely fine.
Perfect. Okay, well, that's all the questions. Thank you so much to everyone for attending and listening. And yeah, I really hope that you managed to sell Saudi Arabia and have learned a lot from this presentation. And again, shall we just remind everyone about the competition that we've got going on?
Absolutely. So you've all passed that first step. You've been listening in today. Just register and complete. It's about 20 minutes that the little specialist program Become a Specialist by the 27th of February. And then we'll be announcing the winners just after that.
Perfect. I've already had messages saying, can you make sure I win the watch?
It will be done at random.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, everyone. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you very much for listening.